Thank you all very much, and thank you for that introduction. And I'm very pleased to be speaking alongside Khalid Al Awasi tonight. I'll start off with something. I'll try to keep what I'm saying short because you're here to listen to him, not to me. We've had enough. Dundee's had enough of me speaking when Ali was on board that ship. But I think just talking about Palestine, the occupation, and seeing the exhibition outside by Rod, it is very touching. It is something that reminds us of how little we have done towards that cause and how much we need to be doing to end this illegal siege and this illegal occupation of these lands. The occupation, many of us may think that, or Gaza, the problem in Gaza, many people associate with Hamas taking power and the problem starting there. But it doesn't, and this is what Israel keeps talking about, is the problem is Hamas and Hezbollah, Hamas and Hezbollah. And just 2 days ago I was speaking along two rabbis as part of the Edinburgh Festival on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and the whole discussion went on Palestine and Israel, and the blame is always, one of the rabbis said, you're always blaming Israel, why don't you shift the blame to the people who are really doing the terrorism, and that is Hamas and Hezbollah and the Palestinians. And I felt very, very insulted at a comment like that the Palestinians are the ones that were doing that. And I responded to him saying, well, when my grandfather was kicked out of his village, there was no Hamas or no Hezbollah, and there was no one throwing rockets at an Israel. There was no Israel, and Israel was the one that actually took that land from the people there. The problem is the occupation has gone on for too long, and this is mainly because of the complicity of us in the West and the Western governments in the United States especially. And it just, when you think about it, it has gone on since 1948, 1967. These children in Gaza who are now 16 will talk about how the world has failed them and how the international community has done nothing to do anything for them. Today, Ali got a phone call from the United Nations saying that they'd like him to be one of the witnesses on the flotilla. And my mother turned around and said, well, the UN has been saying for the last 60 years they're going to do something about it. And what will this really bring? And when she said that, and when I heard the comments of the children, on the paintings, the people have had enough. And they've suffered to the extent where occupation becomes normal. And people are trying to live with occupation and take that as a normality and live with that. And that is in itself a problem, because it puts you on the side where you think, I cannot do anything about this. It is better to stop resisting and sit back, because no one else is going to help me to do it. Or you have the other extreme, or the other end of people who will never give up, and they will keep fighting until this ends. If you look at a place like Hebron, with settlers living in the city, and the amount of protection that they have, people have adapted to the occupation in a sense. And people, the main shopping center, the city center, had to move from there because of the settlers to somewhere else. And people are trying to get on with their lives, but you cannot get on with your life under occupation. Many people put a lot of hope on Yasser Arafat coming back, and put a lot of hope that the peace process will bring something. But the peace process has been counterproductive. The number of settlements that have been built during the peace process, the amount of confiscation of land, Yasser Arafat, when he stopped giving concessions, then he becomes an enemy, then you bomb him in Ramallah, and until he goes. Now you have a president, Mahmoud Abbas, who most Palestinians that I've spoken to in Palestine and outside Palestine do not like, because he just agrees with whatever the Israelis want, and he says we will not resist, and we will have these negotiations, and that is the only way forward. And the problem is, either you become a pacifist and you do nothing and you sit, or you take action. And the problem is, if we look at throughout history, since 1948, Israel has got away with mass murder. Not murder, but mass murder at a very large scale. And all we have to do is just look at the 3 past years and look at the mass murder that Israel has got away with. In the Lebanon, in Gaza last Christmas, with 1,400 Palestinians being butchered. And as Gideon Levy calls it, punishment of Gaza. The attack on the flotilla carrying aid to break that siege, and to us in Britain and many countries around the world, the forging of passports for Israel to assassinate people outside Palestine. A lot of us might, looking at the news, and I sometimes just stop watching the news because there is no way that you can express your anger and you can get it out, and it becomes extremely difficult. And you might think, what can I do that will make a difference? But everyone can do something, and if we stand back and say, well, I'm only one person and I cannot do anything, then you will only be one person and you cannot do anything. But if we stand together and stop Israel from what it's doing, and stop the crimes that Israel is committing, then we can stop it. A lot of us might think it will only take a superpower like the United States to stop Israel. But I think we can be stopping Israel by various different ways. And I think locally here, we've been working on various different campaigns to try to do our bit, because everyone has to clear their conscience at the end of the day. What have we done to stop what is happening? Are we complicit to what Israel is doing? And that is the question. And one of the major things that is being taken forward is the boycott and divestment and sanctions on Israel. And you might not think it, but within Dundee, a small city in the north of Scotland, there is a stall that is selling products from the Dead Sea, from Palestinian occupied territories, and bringing these products into Dundee and selling them in our shopping centre. There is Eden Springs, which is an Israeli company, which is used by many Scottish councils and many schools and so on. And there is a lot we can be doing. And it is only when we think that we cannot do anything, that's when the occupation will continue. And the occupation will get worse and worse by the day. When I visited Gaza at the start of the Intifada, the first Intifada, Gaza, I visited it, and we went from Hebron to Gaza. I could not spend one day in Gaza. And this is before any rockets were thrown into Israel, before anyone the resistance got, the violent resistance got to that level. Sewage was running in the streets. You had to literally walk over sewage. Clean water was only allowed 1 hour during the day. And living in Hebron, where the water would be cut off, but you had water wells that you can take water and drink. In Gaza, it wasn't the case. And it was salty water that was coming through the taps. And it was disgusting. I could not bear it. I could not bear living in a refugee camp for a night. But imagine the 1.7 million people living there today, and how much worse it has got by the day. This is 20 years ago, and the situation in Gaza has only gotten worse and worse and worse, because Gaza is blocked off. When you compare the West Bank to Gaza, it is heaven. And when you compare how we're living in comparison to the way other peoples are living, we're living very luxurious lifestyle. And this is the main problem in the equation. There is occupation, because occupation will not allow you to stand up. Occupation will not allow you to move forward. And as Rod was saying, one form of occupation, one form of resisting the occupation is actually people just going to school and trying to live their ordinary life and getting high grades and so on. And that's what I was being told when I went to school, that this is a way, education and knowledge is a way to resisting the occupation. But I'll end with certain signs of hope, and I'm very pleased that Dundee is the first city in the UK to be hosting Gideon Levy today. He only arrived yesterday, and we're very glad that the first Scottish, the first British city to be twinned with a Palestinian city, is again the first city to host Gideon Levy, who I read his article which talked about the flotilla, and the title of it was Gaza Flotilla Drives Israel into a Sea of Stupidity. It was something along these lines. And it was published, I read it the hour that it was actually published, because I was writing flotilla, I was on the internet all the time trying to find what was happening. It was a time that there was no connection with the guys on the ship. So I read it and I thought, that is a very sensible statement. Had Israel just listened to his advice and what he was writing, it would have made a big difference to Israel for its for its own good. So without further ado, and without me speaking any further, I think I'll hand you over to our main speaker today, Gideon Levy, who I very much look forward to hearing what he speaks.